Hello, everybody, and welcome. All thanks to Furphy. We are the Armchair Experts. Cam Luke, Adam Cooney, get involved. Hashtag Armchair Experts at 7AFL. Hello, Adam.
Good to see you again, Cameron. How's your week been?
Been really good. And I'll tell you what, Saints fans are getting involved. I'm not a Saints fan, but they are having a good week because our Furphy unbelievable moments, a resounding win. 54% of people said the unbelievable moment from round 4 was the Saints. Are they back? Are they back, Adam?
Well, they should be back after that. 33 points down against a pretty good outfit who played pretty well in Melbourne. I know they've lost the last couple of the Eagles at Marvel, but they travel okay. So save their season, Saints, and a couple of us so-called experts have a bit of egg on our face, don't we? Because it was a pretty good performance.
So this is the question about St Kilda, okay? Which one's the real St Kilda? And this is what I always look at these type of things, okay? So they're nearly 6 goals down and they were brilliant. And their second half is more indicative of the St Kilda that a lot of us thought we were going to see. So is that the real St Kilda going forward? Their fixture hasn't changed. They've still got a couple of big weeks ahead of them. Yeah. Or was that first half where West Coast just came out a little bit sluggish after halftime? Is that more indicative? Like, is Big Kingy, is he going to rip apart games each and every week? Are we going to see Crouch and Brad Hill do what they did? Jack Steele is consistent each and every week. There is no doubt about that. But that's the big question going forward, isn't it? When it comes to St Kilda, which one is the real Saints? The one we said in the first 3.5 weeks, or the one that we all seen in the third and fourth quarter on the weekend? And if it was a third and fourth quarter one, well, Saints fans have got reason to be excited again.
Yeah, I'm going to go with the second half Saints, I think. And because it was led by Marshall coming back into the side. I think they've missed him. King is going to be up and down. We understand that. But if he can kick his 2 or 3 every week, it was Brad Hill, Crouch, Butler, I thought were 3 players under the pump, really. And Crouch hasn't played a lot of footy. We know he's been injured. But it was those 3 players that I thought got them back. And now... And we know they've got a big fortnight of footy, but I think that's the Saints that we should expect to see now that those guys are back into some form. Dan Butler trims the mullet off. It's funny that players don't get a kick and then they trim their hair. That's disgraceful. I think they should go with it. But he's back into some good form, and I think that's the Saints we should see, certainly over the next couple of weeks, and definitely the next month is a huge one for them. We understand that. But I reckon that all the good players which have been down and have been copping heat played well on the weekend, so now they're in form. They should be back.
The next month will tell us if they can win a flag. And it will be a bit now, because they could just stay in that tier where they were last year, 6 to 10, right there on the cusp of finals, but probably aren't consistent enough against the best teams to get rolling and have a legitimate crack at it. I think that it's still there. Like Rowan Marshall's an interesting one. I find the plantar fascia, if I said that correctly, you're the pro athlete and I'm no doctor. I find it remarkable that tearing it is actually a good thing for your foot. It looked like a nasty situation. It looks like it hurt like hell. He might well miss this week. We're still unsure, but it's a good thing going forward. But we'll know in the next month, I reckon, if St Kilda are a legitimate, hey, Saints fans, get excited they can win a premiership, or there may be that tier below, and now we just have to sort of see how they're going to take that next step. Injuries are still a big concern for them. Now, your beloved Port Adelaide, who you've been tipping to win a flag since 2015. And, of course, it was weird because you played for 2 of those years and actually legitimately thought you were playing for a team that could win a flag. I've got to read this quote because I want to get your thoughts on it. It was Ollie Wines, of course, superstar at Port Adelaide. He was on Melbourne Radio 3AW this week, okay? And this is a quote. Our midfield is built of guys that probably aren't the most polished players, myself included. I probably lead that position. So to have another silky mid coming into the frame would be nice. Now, this is about a guy who has had a great start to the year in Zach Merritt, who is a free agent. Quote, he's a quality player. We'd love to have him. Then asked if he's prepared to take a pay cut to get a big fish, i.e. Zach Merritt. He says, I quote, definitely. I think we, more so my age and up, are at the stage of our careers where we're as hungry as ever to win a premiership. Okay, I want to start with that last little point. And I don't want to call you a money hungry. I am more cared about the bank balance than a premiership, Adam Cooney, but I will, because you were more about the cash. Do you think we're in a situation where players, and I love the way Zach Merritt goes, but he's not the ultimate big fish. He's not a Nat Fyfe. He's not a Dusty Martin. He's not a Patrick Cripps. He's not a Marcus Bontempelli. Do you think we're at the point where players are going to take pay cuts to get that next tier of player in, like a Zach Merritt, into your footy club?
Well, I think it's horses for courses, as they say. That I don't think they need another player like that. They've got Boak, they've got Wines, they've got Houston, who's a bigger body in there. So that's three players who can win their own footy and be the Bulls in there. That's not the player that Port Adelaide need. So in terms of if they need a player that can go inside and be the Bull, that's ticked off. They're looking for someone who can complement those players around him, and none better than Zach Merritt, who uses the footy really well, and he's a zippy little player. I think he'd suit forward of centre, even going through the midfield really well. As in, when I say forward of centre, not playing forward of centre, kicking the ball centre forward to some of those stars from Port Adelaide.
Hang on. So Zach Merritt's got one All-Australian under his belt, and I want this on the record. I think he's a great player. And I think Essendon are going to probably have to pay him more this year, considering when it comes to free agents and the players they've lost in the last couple of years. And the fact is that he's their best player, probably on their list, although that's an argument, I guess. But in my opinion, I think he is in particular right now. So there, the money to entice him out is even going to be greater, because Essendon are probably going to have to pay him more because of guys they have left. Do you think Port Adelaide are going to take a pay cut to get Zach Merritt? If someone said to you, Adam Cooney, mate, this guy's been one All-Australian, but we need him. Can all you superstars take a pay cut to get him in? Would you say yes?
If I was 29 years of age and chasing a flag and thought I only had maybe 2 or 3 years left to do that, and a player could come in and make an immediate impact and get closer to that flag, then of course you would take a pay cut. I don't know how significant it would be, but I mean,
mate, hang on.
What's the magic figure that can buy a premiership?
I'm not calling you a liar here, but I think you've bent the truth here a little bit. And we've also got to keep in mind, Port Adelaide were the minor premiers last year. They were on top of the ladder from round one until the very end and lost a prelim to the team that won the flag by a goal. Like, what? So all of a sudden, all these guys are going to, like, everyone, yourself included, a lot of people expect Port Adelaide to be there in the top 4 when September rolls around. Look, yet again, I get what is happening, but if they're going to start taking pay cuts for any free agent, we are going to see the rich get a hell of a lot richer when it comes to the free agent and the way the AFL system is structured up.
Yeah, but who cares? Like, if you're on 700 grand a year and you're Ollie Wines and you're getting close to 30 and you think that a player can come in and you might have to chop 20 grand off your salary, then who cares?
20 grand's not a pay cut, mate.
But no, but
is that what you see as a pay cut? 20 grand when you earn 700K a year? 20
to 30 grand over, say, 10 players and is an extra 300, which could be the difference between getting a player like Zach Merritt and not. So it's not going to be a huge, and it's not going to have to chop 100 grand off his pay so he can get Zach Merritt. It's not going to make a difference at all. That's why he'd be willing to take a pay cut, because at the end of the day, probably not going to notice the 20K going out of his bank account anyway. And if Zach Merritt can make up that goal difference between losing and winning a prelim final, then of course you're going to throw away 30K for that.
That's why you're the mathematician, because that's a really good point. If you go to 10 dudes and there's half of, might end up to 300,000. I cannot believe you've just brought simple mathematics to the Armchair Expert, and it's opened up my mind. Do you think you'll be at the Bombers?
I think he'll stay at the Bombers. Yeah.
They can't afford to lose him, Adam.
Well, he's their best in terms of decision-making midfielder that they've got. And I don't think he's their best player. I think you've left a man who could probably be in the rolling MVP at the moment in Jake Stringer. I think he's their most important player. And Ridley fast becoming one of them as well. So I can't believe you've left out Jake Stringer in that top 5. But we'll get into that a little bit later in the show. But in terms of best mid, tick that one off for Zach Merritt easily.
Butters. Out. Dersma. Out. Fantasia. We did see him limp around a little bit on the weekend. Are we worried about Port Adelaide? Or are you worried about Port Adelaide, your beloved power? They were good. They got the win. But those small forwards, a bit of injuries, a little bit of soreness going around. And for a couple of them, definitely an extended stay on the sidelines.
Yeah, it is worrying. Carlton at the MCG as well is a bit of a risk for Port Adelaide. And I'm going to get into my intriguing games a bit later as well. And Carlton, I'm going to say they're up there again. I don't know why.
Hang on.
I'm intrigued about the Blues, but
Don't go early. Just on the next month. And you're right there, Carlton, St Kilda, Brisbane and Adelaide in the next month. Of course, the showdown, which ends a pretty tricky month for a team that are playing good footy. But you got to have those guys that sit at the foot of the Dixon and Marshalls inside 50.
Yeah, you do. I am worried about Port Adelaide over the next few weeks because how good was Dersma on the weekend and how good were Butters? So, and Rosie as well, was that to round out the trio. He's had some injury concerns. So I'm worried about where the electricity is going to come from for Port Adelaide, because it has been those younger guys who provided that. We know that they'll have the grunt there inside to be able to match Paddy Chris and those other inside midfielders from the Blues. So they should be right inside. And it's a big one for Charlie Dixon as well, because if he dominates games, Port Adelaide generally win. And if he doesn't, it sort of gives them, the opposition, a chance. So if he can play well on the MCG, I think Port Adelaide should scrape by. But this will be a close game with those with some of my boys out.
Charlie Dixon's the most important player at Port Adelaide. And you mentioned about when he monsters defenders. Okay, he has to turn them into goals. We've seen him in big finals have great marks, huge. Like mid-20s when it comes to disposals and inability in front of 50. When he monsters defenders and hits the scoreboard with 6-pointers, not 1-pointers, Port Adelaide win games. It's not even a question. It's just the question of him being able to do it. And I think Marshall and Georgiades both inside 50, and Lycett's ability with the way that the ruckmen play the game to go forward at different times. And of course, the buzz of small forwards, hopefully they get back at his feet. It makes it a little bit easier for him to do that. But when Dixon is on in that menacing, aggressive, I'm going to belt you in a legal way, he's by far the most important player. Port Adelaide win.
Yeah, but we'll be watching Charlie Dixon when it comes to the pointy end of the season and goal kicking in clutch moments, because he's had big games where he's kicked good goals, but he's missed a few when the heat has really been on. So we'll be watching him closely, and certainly Port Adelaide over the next few weeks and deep into September, hopefully.
Hang on. Yeah. Sweet. No, so I just had to check my camera. April 14. Prep my phone. April 14, which means is that time of the year where we start losing our mind about coaching vacancies. All right, which I find remarkable. I understand the Collingwood Nathan Buckley situation. He is out of contract. I don't get how there is rumour that Carlton could be open. Teague's only just got there. You know, what? Clarkson. Oh, the Hawks are struggling. Yes, we know, but he has been the mastermind coach. Is there anything in your mind right now outside of Collingwood and that coaching situation, which even could be a little bit early to be fair, but I understand the drama around it when Nathan Buckley's out of contract at the Collingwood Football Club. Is there in your mind any other coaching vacancy for a would-be coach?
Geez, you'd be flat if you were David Teague and Carlton. People speaking about possible vacancy there. No, I think that's the only one that's in danger at the moment is a situation with Nathan Buckley. Keep in mind, where were we at with Melbourne and Simon Goodwin at sort of the juncture of 2020? I mean, we were speaking about this guy's being on the chopping block, and fast forward to the start of season 2021, D's are undefeated after the first month. So we can go early. We understand that. There's a lot of hysteria when teams don't start well. But Buckley's been in there. He's been in the job for 10 years?
2012 was his first season. So it'll be his 10th season this year.
So and I think he's improved as a coach unbelievably since when he started in terms of his empathy with the players. But I don't know. Does it come time where you need a fresh voice? The same voice for 10 years can wear thin after a while. So again, we speak about a big month coming up for the Saints. I think it's a huge month for the Pies, who played poorly against GWS, should have accounted for them, who were nowhere near it, but they played an unbelievable game led by Toby Green. I think Collingwood's the only talking point in terms of coaches this year.
Agreed. Couldn't agree anymore. I want to ask you that, though, because you had Rodney Eade. This is a similar situation to Collingwood, okay? You had Rodney Eade for a lot of your Bulldogs career, and on 3 occasions you got to the second last weekend, but you didn't get to a grand final and you didn't get to the premiership. In that, you would know, with the Collingwood, when you don't get the ultimate grow, and they're so close, they made that grand final, just got nutted in the last minute. They made a prelim, made the finals last year. Like, did Rodney Eade's voice get old for you? Did you need something else? Did you and the players need something else when it didn't quite equate to the ultimate success?
I didn't, because me and Rodney had a really good relationship, and he understood me really well and let me sort of do my thing. So he understood my personality and how I went about it. But in terms of the same voice yelling and screaming over and over, I think the rest of the majority of the group certainly needed a freshening up, because it does wear you down. He was a pretty demonstrative coach, and not everyone takes that feedback well. So I think that, the group at that stage needed someone fresh. Didn't work out well because that fresh voice was only there for a couple of years after that. And then we saw what Luke Beveridge came in with that group. So, and did with in 2015, made the finals and then won it in 2016. So that can be the freshening up that you need. I think we'll know in the next sort of 5 or 6 weeks whether Nathan Buckley will coach next year.
Just want to point this out. It didn't go from Rodney Eade to Luke Beveridge.
No.
Ironically, Brendan McCartney, I heard on 11:16 SEN on Melbourne radio this week, said, put an end to the noise. Just re-sign Nathan Buckley. Look.
I wonder where that's coming from.
Well, I'll say this right now. I don't think you can re-sign him right now. He may not want to do it. I have no idea. And he's on the record of saying whatever is best for the Collingwood Football Club, he's happy with. And that was pre-season, of course. But you need to see what happens over the next month. But I'll say this, and I've said this a lot about Collingwood. They've got to work out their inside 50 forward. This is the reason that they have trouble in some games. I don't think on Saturday night that was particularly the major case. I thought the Giants were really good. But inside 50, which continues to be the ongoing theme as to why teams fall that little bit short, that's what they've got to work out. So Myercheck and Hoskin Elliott and Mason Cox they're part-time. And when I say part-time power forwards, Hoskin Elliott's been great, although been out of form for a little while. Myercheck's that perfect second forward, and Mason Cox sort of goes between being that backup ruckman to Grundy and inside 50. Until they're able to work out a way to get an inside 50 big power forward, therefore making everyone's job easier, I think that's still the much bigger question mark about over then, they're not. Can Nathan Buckley still coach?
But those players you mentioned have all had average seasons to date. So I think Myercheck's a leading goal kicker with 8 for the year. I mean, Tex Walker kicks that in a half of footy these days. And then there's De Goey, who's underperformed as well, forward of centre. If he's not going to be that superstar mid that we're talking about, then you got to plan him forward, and he's got to kick 3 every week. Mason Cox is having a good season, but he's doing a lot more work up and around. So he's not kicking goals as well. And you mentioned Hoskin Elliott, who's really out of form. So those guys and Josh Thomas is another one who's a small forward who's out of form. So all these players that we spoke about, that X-factor forward line that played really well, are again having poor seasons. And I agree, a lot of it is to do with ball use going inside 50, because it has been poor. And the connection, again, we've been speaking about this connection, hit-outs to advantage. Brodie Grundy and his midfielders around him. So Brodie Grundy, I think, had 41 hit-outs on the weekend and was dominated by Shane Mumford around the ground. So Brodie Grundy's form is still an issue, and also the connectivity between mid and forward to centre in terms of delivering inside 50.
Well, thanks to Furphy, refreshing Al. We are the Midweek Armchair experts, and each and every week on a Tuesday at 7 AFL, we drop our MVP, mainly because the umpires just give it to midfielders. Case in point, one Adam Cooney. So we look a little deeper into who is the most valuable players on each and every team. We have a top 5 list, and as usual, you're sulking about something. I've got Petrarca at 1, Walker at 2, Gawn at 3, Steele at 4, that's Jack, and Dusty Martin at 5. What's wrong with that?
You're a big fan of Dusty Martin. I mean, his first couple of games were very good.
Sorry that I went out on a limb and just continued to put the best player and the most clutch player probably in the history of the game in the most valuable player.
Yeah, but past performances doesn't matter when it's up to the rolling MVP. I think you might have missed a couple. I think Dusty's very, very lucky to be in there at number 5 still. I thought
and I touch wood here, unless he misses a long period of time for whatever reason, an injury, and I hope it's not. I hope he just continues to play. He's always going to be almost in there because he is the best player in the competition. And when he switches on, Richmond switches on. And in fact, who did Richmond play this week? St Kilda. Tomorrow night, he'll have 35 touches and say, stuck it up, Adam Cooney. He won't jump out.
If he has 35 and kicks a couple, then he can jump straight back into the top 5. But who played better on the weekend? Travis Boak or Dustin Martin? Who had a better game?
Travis Boak was probably a little bit better than Dusty Martin. He wasn't at his best.
He was in your rolling MVPs to start with, and he's been pretty consistent. And you've left him out purely because you don't like Port Adelaide. and you've left up. What about Jack McRae? There's another one. He's had a bloody good
he was brilliant on the weekend. He's right there on the cusp as well.
Next week,
if he plays as well as he did last week, this week against Gold Coast, I think there's a real chance that McRae will be in there. Of course, you continually push Marcus Bontempelli, which I'm all for, but you're biased because you've got a couple of dollars on him to win the Brownlow. As always, gamble responsibly. And Jake Stringer, who you mentioned before, I'm going to give him one more week, but if he continues to play like this, he's going to be knocking on that door as well for the MVP.
Yeah, nice. I like that one because he's clearly the barometer for this Essendon side. When he's in the team, they look a completely different outfit. They're confident going forward, and he just does magical things.
I've got two Melbourne players in, both Petrarca, who's probably leading the Brownlow right now. Is it Tex Walker? This is why we have the MVP. Because Tex Walker won't be leading the Brownlow after 3 weeks, and he should be. Well, he should be. He was brilliant. Well, this is why we've got this award. The umpires don't give it to forwards.
I reckon that Tex would have, I reckon he's got 7 Brownlow votes at the moment.
He 100% agreed that he should, at a minimum. But this is why we have the most valuable player, is because the umpires don't give it. But he's been brilliant. And Adelaide, of course, had to grind it out, but got the win. All right. Well, thanks to Furphy, we are the Midweek Armchair Experts. Adam Cooney, Cam Luke, you can get involved anytime you like. Hashtag Armchair Experts. Couple of quiet ones. I won't wear the beanie today. The beanie on Monday morning, all thanks to Furphy Refreshing Ale. All right. So what's the most intriguing game of the weekend?
Saints and Richmond.
Why?
Easily. Why? What do you think? Well, the reigning premiers lost 2 games in a row and just starting to stumble a little bit. And the Saints are back after a terrific week last week. So they should be up and about. Marvel Stadium, I think the game is at, which St Kilda play very, very well. And we're not too concerned about the Tigers just yet because I did had a little look before. This stage after round 5 last year, they were 11th. 2019, they were 10th. So we can't write off the Tigers just yet. But 3 losses in a row, and it'll start. The pressure will start building for the Richmond Footy Club.
I agree. It's going to be a very intriguing game. And St Kilda play traditionally very well against Richmond, not just at Marvel and in Melbourne. But remember last year they played him in the second week of the finals, and had they have been a little more efficient going inside 50 in that third quarter, they would have put a hell of a lot more scoreboard pressure on the Tigers. In saying that, the Tigers absorb that type of pressure almost better than anyone else in the league. But they do play well against them. But it's funny you bring up the Lakers, because I'm thinking about changing the name of the Tigers to the Richmond LeBrons. They don't care about the home and away season. They coast on through. They know they can win anywhere, as per example of winning last year when they went to Adelaide and won a prelim. The year before, they went to Brisbane and won a first final. They're just coasting on through. I think they'll beat St Kilda. I think they'll get to the end of the year. They won't be the minor premier, but they'll be the raging hot premiership favourite when we get to the last 8 teams standing.
Well, they've got to do it. They can coast if they want, but they've got to do enough to finish in the 4.
Is it the same conversation we had last year, Adam? Is it? You pointed out, you did a little bit of research, which I find hard to believe. So someone's giving you those type of numbers. But essentially, this is what we had the same argument last year. Everyone was, are they coasting? Have they got the motivation? Yeah, they will when it matters. And they'll make the top 4 and they'll go very close to winning the premiership.
They will. I agree.
But you penciled them in already. How are you jumping off? 2 weeks ago, you penciled them in as the flag.
I'm not jumping off. I'm just saying after 3, if they lose 3 in a row, that's when it starts to get a little bit hairy for them. But they'll be fine.
You want to have a slab of Furphy on who wins that game or not?
I'll have a slab of Furphy on that one, and I'll take St Kilda.
Good, because I was taking Richmond. That makes sense. All thanks to Furphy Refreshing Ale. We are the Midweek Armchair Experts. We'll be back. Channel 7, the moment the Pies fans are either jubilant that they've gone over to the West and got the job done again, or they've lost another game. Hashtag Armchair Experts to get involved at 7AFL. Adam Cooney, I'll see you then.